What is going on, X community? Exostomp here, and today, people, we're going to do something a little different. It's actually not going to be draft related. Well, I wouldn't say draft related. This is draft related, but we're going to be ranking the Pokemon types in draft format. So this is going to be a little interesting. I was thinking about doing this just on stream, but deciding to do it on a video. I may do these rankings, like the, ranking in general, either on stream or in videos. Let me know in the comments what you guys would prefer. But yeah, I used to do rankings and stuff like on tier list maker a while back. Not too far back, but by myself. And since I make videos now, might as well do it here. So yeah, we're ranking based on the draft format here. So let's start off with the S tier. I think types that you probably should have on every single team count as S. So I would definitely put Fairy, Steel, and Water. Maybe not in this order specifically, but I think these three are, like, maybe Steel can be up here. Depending, but yeah, I think these three are probably the best types. There's not, I don't see many people saying no, you're wrong, but again, let me know in the comments if you guys think I'm wrong, because even on Sun teams you see water types, which, it's not too crazy. So yeah, sorry, just checking that I'm recording. Okay, so yeah. And Fairy, if you don't have a Fairy type, I mean, Fairy is such a good type, only weak against two types. I mean, Fairy is just so good. If you don't have a good Fairy, you might be in a bad position in your draft. And Steel, you don't need a great Steel type, but having a Steel type is basically mandatory. I mean, you're immune to poison in general, and toxic. Just Steel as a typing is incredible. So having one is great. So going on to the A tier. A tier is mainly types that are pretty much mandatory. Like, you should have them on your team. But some teams can get away, I guess, without them. And I guess I can I'll put Fire, I'll put Dark. Fire, Dark, maybe Dragon, and Flying. So, in my opinion, the most important, what is it called? Like, the trios, like Fairy, Dragon, Steel, and Fire, Water, Grass. The most important one, of course, is Fairy, Dragon, Steel, because those three types are incredible. Yeah, you might be able to get away without a Dragon type on your team, but it usually is better to have a good Dragon, because Dragon, I mean, it resists so many types. It's great. It's a really great type. So, again, not sure about the order here. Maybe Dragon can be up here. I would put Flying in A, mainly because if you do have, let's just say, a Flying Steel type, great typing. Basically, I'm thinking about, like, okay, yeah, you can maybe get away with having a Levitate Mon or two instead of a Flying type, but then if, let's say, Excadrill or Haxorus has Earthquake with Moldbreaker, your team might get swept. So yeah, I think Flying type is one of the best. Also because they usually have Roost and Defog. Those things in general are just really good in draft. So having a Flying type is pretty damn good. Fire is the second most important part of the Fire, Water, Grass core. Again, you might be able to get away with not having a Fire type, but having a good Fire type is always going to be super beneficial for your team. I mean, you see things like Arcanine, Incineroar, Volcarona, all those Pokemon in draft that do well just because they're Fire types. I mean, it's awesome. But we also have Dark. Speaking about Incineroar, Dark It's immune to Prankster as well as immune to Psychic, which is a very good offensive type in draft. And again, it has a lot of really nice moves in its move pool usually. Meaning stab knockoff is usually the case. Don't look at Zarude, but yeah, stab knockoff is usually incredible. And they usually have stuff like taunt. They have stuff like, depending on what you use, like nasty plot, because dark is usually evil in Japan, I believe they are called. So yeah, dark is really good, and I already explained dragon. But yeah, okay, so B tier is like middle of the road, so I would probably put Ghost in B, mainly because Ghost is immune to 2 types, and I was thinking about maybe putting them in C, but Ghost is immune to 2 types, which means that, like, yeah, you could say that most Ghost types aren't the best, unless you're talking about like Gengar or Dragapult mainly, but there are some really good low tier Ghost types, like let's say Dhelmise, which with the inclusion of Poltergeist and the removal of Pursuit, I think Ghost types are extremely good in draft. I'm actually hesitant to put them in A, now that I'm thinking about it. At least in Gen 8, if we're talking about no Pursuit, I might even put them in A. Like, a good Ghost type is incredible for teams. I'll leave them in A for now. But yeah, I think in general, having a Ghost type is great. I mean, immune to 2 types is just one of the best things. But yeah, I think the next type, or I guess, yeah, the next type, I want to go over ground. So ground, immune to electric, which a lot of people like to run electric types. We'll go over that, I guess, after this one. But I think ground is one of my favorite, well, it is one of my favorite. I think it is my favorite type in the game. And they usually are paired with stuff like Stealth Rocks and sometimes Spikes. And yeah, I think a lot of the ground types, like if you get a nice bulky ground type, it's really solid for your team. Especially because I usually don't go with ground types without rocks, mainly because if you're going for a ground type, you're going to want rocks on it, unless you have rocks on like your steel, your dragon, your I don't know, your fire, whatever you have. Unless you have a lot of rocks, for your ground type, you want it to be your main rocker, in my opinion. But yeah, so I think ground type is a B. Again, it could be argued that it could be an A tier. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna move Ghost back to, I think it's top of B. But yeah, then it's ground. I'll probably say next would be electric, since we were talking about ground. So, electric only has one weakness, being ground. And if you have a fast electric type, and the opponent doesn't bring their ground type to the draft match, what is stopping you from just pressing Volt Switch, or Wild Charge, or whatever you're going for? I think electric type always gets underrated, in my opinion, because, yeah, electric type can be considered, a little weak in most people's eyes, but again, only weak to one type, being ground. Yes, ground is, you know, a lot of people do have earthquake and stuff, but the ground typing, again, if they don't bring a ground type and you bring your electric type, you could just, let's say it's Jolteon, you could specs it and Volt Switch around constantly, doing tons of damage, and it's just, it's a great type. It's not A. I would never really put it in A. I think it's a really solid B tier type, though, in draft. I'd probably go with Poison next. So Poison, it's immune to, of course, getting poisoned, which is great. And having a grounded Poison is really nice in draft. Being able to suck up the, or remove the toxic spikes in general is Really good. It's such a good thing to have. If you don't have a grounded poison, and you have let's just say wheezing. I know it can be a grounded poison, but let's say you're running it as levitate, and they do set up spikes. Most of the time, you can get away without a grounded poison, but I think the reason why I bring up grounded poison is because in draft, it is really nice to have, because then people will be hesitant to actually bring toxic spikes, which usually means they're not going to bring toxic spikes if you have a grounded poison. If it's a good grounded poison. I'm not saying like if it's Marini, because yeah, Marini's good in draft, I will say. I might make a video on that, but it wouldn't really turn people off. But if it was like, let's say, Galarian Wheezing, I know I keep bringing up Wheezing, I can't really think of any other. Let's say it's like Tentacruel. If it's Tentacruel, they might be like, okay, well, he has a Tentacruel. Let's not bring Toxic Spikes, because you can just send out his Tentacruel and get rid of it. So yeah, Poison, really nice. Speaking about Toxic Spikes, they also usually have Toxic Spikes. Not all of them, but usually they do, which is really nice to have for a team. But yeah, I might say bottom of B, we go with Psychic. So I put Psychic here because I don't think it's C tier. I think it's such a good offensive type that if they don't have a dark type, or they don't have a good dark type, and you bring a Psychic type, like let's say a Spec Psychic type, or even like Gallade, like a Choice Banded one, or Sorzance, whatever, being able to just press Psychic moves is such a good thing. Now, yeah, most people should have a dark type. Guys, if you don't have a dark type on your team, you probably should look at your team again and find a dark type. But yeah, I think Psychic is such a good offensive type. Not much to talk about here, besides they usually have access to stuff like Future Sight, so Choice Specs is such a good thing to have. Some of them have Teleport. Most of them have Trick Room, which, yeah, Trick Room isn't the best, but it's good to have on your team in case you do want to do something with it. But yeah, I think Psychic isn't mandatory, but it is really nice to have if you do have one. So yeah, I think this could be perceived as like a bottom of B, but I'm gonna put it at top of C. I'm gonna put normal here. It is immune to Ghost, which, again, Ghost is like bottom of A, top of B. I'm putting it here because it's not D, it's not the worst type, and I feel like if you don't have a normal type, and the opponent has a good Ghost type, like a Gengar or a Dragapult, they could just put a Specs on them, and just sort of press Shadow Ball and run through your team. And that is the scariest thing. It's stuff with like what we talked about, Poltergeist. Let's say they have a Marowak and they have a Trick Room team, and they could just set it up, just press Poltergeist until your whole team dies. If you have a good normal type, a nice bulky normal type, like let's say a Snorlax or a Miltank, or there's a lot of bulky normal types, I think you're pretty set. So in drafts, normal types are pretty good. Plus the fact that most normal types do have a great move pool. I can't really think of one specifically that doesn't have a good move pool. Maybe like I don't even know if Furt has a bad move pool. But I know that stuff like Snorlax and Miltank, they do very well in draft most of the time. So yeah, going with, I think we have Grass and Fighting would probably be in C. I don't know what would be first here. I'm gonna put Grass, because Fighting. So alright, let's go over Grass first. So Grass, not the most important thing. I think you can get away without it. Yes, it's part of the Fire, Water, Grass core, but most grass types aren't really the best. You can get away with running like a tier 4 or a tier 5 grass type. Let's say like a Tangela or even like a Vileplume. They're not bad, and they can be used pretty well most of the time. So they're not mandatory to pick up right away. And yeah, I would say having a grass type is always good for stuff like Earthquakes, and stuff like that. But again, not mandatory. I think being able to finish off the Fire Water Grass core is always such a good thing to have. My OCD is usually happy when I do it. But again, it's not mandatory. I just think it's C tier. I think if you have one, it's good. It's not mandatory. So anyways, yeah. Moving on, we got the fighting, like I talked about. Great against normal types, like I just said. Fat normal types are so annoying for most people's teams. They don't have like a stab close combat or just a really good fighting move on their team. It's a struggle. So having a good fighting type on your team is usually extremely good. Most of the time they're gonna be like a Sawk, like a low tier like Sawk or Passimian. Sometimes could be Cobalion. Cobalion is always so pretty nice, or like a Lucario, which would also use your Steel type. So yeah, if you can like combine your fighting type with one of these, like a Fighting Water, like Keldeo, or like a Cobalion, or anything like that, I think those combos are really, really nice to have. I'm gonna leave it here. I think it's fine here. But yeah, the last three types, you already know where they're going. I'm gonna put Bug into the top of D, mainly because, yes, you can make an argument that Sticky Webs is very, very nice to have on your team. But if we're just talking about the type, the Bug type, I would say you can 100% go without it. It's not a good type. The only reason why people pick Bug types most of the time, is it has Sticky Web. That's one. Or it has a really good dual type, like a type that goes well with bugs. Like let's say, for instance, Araquanid or Golisopod, they share the water typing. You're usually going to pick up a water type. So let's say Araquanid, might as well get a Sticky Webber on that at that point. Scorch, if there's not many good fire types left, Scorch is still pretty good as a lower tier fire type. But yeah, I think if people are like, hey, I need a bug type, and they're not going for a Sticky Webber, like if they're looking at, hey, I need a bug type, then that's not how you should be playing it. Really not that good. But anyways, second to last, I think we have Ice. The reason why I'm not putting Rock here is because I think Ice can get away with stuff like Aurora Veil. If you run stuff like a Bomb of Snow or Ninetales, I think that's really helpful to have. But again, it's not needed. Stuff like Ice Shard is even good on Mamo, and even like Vanillux can get away with that. And Freeze Dry. Freeze Dry is also a really big one, which is why I don't put it last. The reason why Rock is last, yeah, they have rocks and they sometimes have spikes. Same like with Ground. Ground is such a better typing that I would rather have two Grounds than a Rock and a Ground. Rock is weak to some really big types in draft, being Ground, Water, and to an extent, Grass. Very scary. I usually don't pick up a Rock type unless I'm going for a certain thing like Terrakion or Lycanroc Dusk, stuff like that, or Tyranitar if I'm going for like a sand team. Which, if you have a specific thing that you're going for, like let's say sand with Gigalith or Tyranitar, or you want to try Lycanroc Dusk because it has like a few new moves or stuff like that, or Terrakia because it's just a good Pokemon. I'm not saying don't go for them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the Rock type in general, you usually don't want to go for. And I did learn that after my first couple of drafts that I like to pick up Crustle. It was okay. I'm not gonna lie, I did love using Crustle, but really wasn't worth it in the long run. But anyways, guys, yeah, this is my list. Please let me know in the comments what you guys actually think about this list. I would say this isn't going to be 100% accurate to everyone's list, but I'm actually curious if you guys agree with me of what I'm actually saying. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Peace.